Hi Viva fam, this is Richa from Coach Viva, and today we're going to talk about why you're always hungry and what to do about it. By the end of this video, you'll know why you are always hungry, and this is super important to know because everyone's trigger is different, and what's yours is really important to understand because you want to address the source, not just the surface symptoms that you're having. And number two, you're going to know how to deal with them depending on what the source is without giving yourself an eating disorder. These are tactics that we have seen work time and time again with our clients, so you're getting tried and tested stuff here. So let's get to it.
The number one and most important thing is to be able to differentiate between physical hunger and a craving. One is a physical biological sensation in your stomach that tells you that you need to eat food in order to get nourishment. And the other one, the craving, is more of a psychological, emotional type of feeling that generally encourages you to eat a specific type of food in order to get some sort of emotional satisfaction. This is what hunger feels like. A hunger is a physical sensation that you can actually feel in the pit of your stomach. You should actually be able to point to the area that you feel discomfort, and only that area. The second thing is that when hunger comes, it generally comes very slowly. You can usually start to sense a low-grade type of hunger within about usually 30 minutes before your regularly scheduled meal. And that hunger will continue to grow, but kind of in a slow way. And it might rise and fall in waves a little bit. So it might go from middle moderate hunger and then die back down into a low grade type of hunger and then rise back up again and maybe even higher the second time, and it'll keep basically going like waves, and each time the wave will be a little bit higher, but it will never go away until you actually eat food. So that's one way to tell whether or not this is an actual physical hunger sensation that you're feeling. And then the final way to tell is that when you're actually hungry, you do not really have a preference for what kind of food you want to eat. When you're hungry, you will eat pretty much most things that are put on to your plate, unless you just really don't like them. So bland foods, for instance, like regular chicken breast with some broccoli on the side. If you were to ask yourself, am I ready to eat chicken breast and broccoli? If you are actually hungry, the answer would be yes, I would eat a few bites of that, even if it's not my favorite food in the world. Cravings, on the other hand, is a sensation that you can't really pinpoint exactly where you're feeling it. It's just kind of like an overall wanting for something. You might salivate a little bit in your mouth, but there is no actual pain point that you can point to. The second thing is that cravings come on suddenly, and they are almost always triggered by some sort of event. You might not be aware of what it is that's triggering it, but it's always triggered by something. And the good thing about that is that they also settle down just as quickly. So unlike hunger that kind of comes in like slow waves, a craving will shoot up. And if you do nothing about it and you focus on something else for a while, it'll also drop suddenly. So cravings can go away, but only if you give it time, and only if you don't continue to think about the thing that you're craving. And the third thing is that when you crave something, you generally crave a very specific kind of food. It's generally a type of taste, a type of texture. It might even be like as specific as you want a certain brand of food. If somebody were to offer you some chicken breast and broccoli, unless that's your comfort food of choice, you're probably going to say no, you don't actually want that, in which case you aren't actually physically hungry. All right, next up, let's delve into strategies for actually dealing with hunger and craving. First, let's talk about hunger. Number one, you might need to drink more water. So when our bodies want water, they will sometimes, actually often, trigger hunger signals. And the reason for that is because food actually contains a little bit of water, and so it makes sense that when your body wants water, it just decides, okay, the easiest way to get you to get more water is to get you to eat more food as well. And so it actually triggers hunger. So a lot of times when you feel hunger, it's actually thirst in disguise. Now, some of you might think, oh, but then why do I also feel thirst? Well, by the time you feel thirst, your body is actually already dehydrated. So the feeling of thirst is more like a second level kind of emergency signal telling you, no, really, you really need water now. So whenever you start to feel hunger and you haven't drank anything in the last hour or so, drink a tall glass of water first and then see whether or not the hunger returns. If it does return, then that means you are actually feeling physical hunger and you should probably get something extra to eat. If it doesn't return, then it probably was actually thirst in disguise. Number 2, are you eating enough nutritious whole foods? Our bodies have only one way to indicate that it needs fuel, and that's through hunger. It doesn't really speak in nuances. So if you are eating nothing but empty calories, and these are usually highly processed, high carb foods with a lot of calories but not a lot of extra nutrients in it, then your body has energy and it might store a lot of the excess as fat, but it doesn't have a lot of the nutrients that it needs, like vitamins and minerals and protein, to really be able to carry out vital functions in your body. So even though you're eating a lot of calories, it still thinks that it's starving. And the only way it knows how to signal that to you, or at least the easiest and loudest way, is by revving up your hunger signals. So if you find that you're eating a lot of processed high carb foods but with low nutrients and you're still always feeling hungry, it might be worth eating some more whole foods like vegetables, like fresh meats. I generally recommend to start at each meal, fill half of your plate with vegetables and the remaining 1/3 with some sort of a lean protein, and then the rest with some kind of whole grain or fruit. Do that for a few days and then check on how you feel afterwards. Also, pay attention to what meals tend to make you feel fuller. For example, one of our clients really feels full when she has cauliflower. So now she eats a lot of her food with cauliflower rice instead of regular rice. Now, this isn't necessarily everybody's magic vegetable, but for her specifically, it really worked. And cauliflower does have a lot of fiber and a lot of nutrients, and so that definitely worked for her. All right, the third thing to watch out for is stress. When your body is stressed, it is in emergency mode. And so it'll try to save and conserve as much energy as possible so that it can do damage control and take care of all the stressors. And it wants even more nutrients and even more energy just in case the stress gets worse. So it's ready to prepare while it's also doing repair and maintenance. So what your body will do in these kinds of stressful situations is slow down your metabolism so you're burning less calories. And on the other side, it will also rev up your hunger hormones so that you are actually feeling real hunger. Now, when you are under a lot of stress, you probably have felt that you wanted to eat more. Some people, when they're under a lot of stress, they want to eat everything. There are other people that don't want to eat a lot when they're under stress. So different people and different bodies do behave differently. But if this is you and you feel like you're kind of under this chronic low stress situation, the best solution for that is to really dig into the root cause of what is happening and tackle that. Find alternative ways to deal with the stress. Figure out what it is that is really causing it and try to find a solution for that rather than through food. The fourth point related to that is sleep. Sleep is kind of on the other side of stress. When you're stressed out, your body in its metabolic functions releases a lot of toxins. And when you sleep, that's when you begin to really clean and flush out those toxins as well as repair anything in your body that has been damaged in the process. So if you cut your sleep short, you cut the repair and cleanup process short. This only makes your body go into deeper emergency mode. Now the rate of repair and cleanup is not enough to deal with all the toxins and all the breakdown that has occurred throughout the rest of the day. So your body wants to make sure that it gets enough nutrients and energy on reserve so that, in case you continue to not sleep, you will still be able to function properly. So once again, it'll lower your metabolism and rev up your hunger hormones. And like with stress, The best way to deal with this is to really deal with the root problem, which is to figure out why you are not sleeping or not getting enough quality sleep, and really deal with that and try to make your sleep hygiene better rather than dealing it with food. The fifth thing that might happen is hormonal imbalance. Now, this can be something like for a menstruating woman, when you're on your period, a lot of women start to feel hunger and want more food. Or if you're on some kind of medication that changes your hormonal profile, that might also rev up your hunger. Or it could dial down your hunger as well. So when that happens, it's a very tricky situation. In the case of menstruation and periods, some women prefer to just power through their monthly cycle because it's usually about 5 or 6 days of discomfort, and they tend to power through it. Other women choose to just simply make that a maintenance period. If this is not something that happens often, if this is something that only happens once in a while, it's okay to kind of give yourself a break once a month. The best advice I have for this is to really prioritize eating a lot of whole foods and getting your adequate rest. Basically, all the points addressed above, double down on those. You want to make sure that this is the time where your body is the most well taken care of. And if you are on medications that mess with your hormonal profile, I highly recommend you consult with your doctor on this and heed whatever advice they have. Okay, and finally, the sixth thing that might cause unexpected hunger is if you suddenly rev up your exercise and your activity levels throughout the day. So when you're doing intense exercise or you're on your feet for multiple hours a day suddenly, you will obviously be burning more calories. Now, this doesn't really apply if you're just doing, 20 to 30 minutes of cardio sessions, maybe once or twice a week. That wouldn't really make that much of a difference. I'm talking intense exercise activities more frequently throughout the week. Like intensive strength training or intensive HIIT exercise, or if you just got a new job where you went from sedentary to suddenly being on your feet 8 hours a day, those will all stoke your metabolism, which will also stoke your hunger levels, and that's expected. So if some kind of big change like that happens in your life and you're suddenly getting that increase in hunger, try to experiment with eating more food, especially around the periods of high activity. So try experimenting with eating more protein and carbs, particularly around your workouts, and seeing whether or not that helps dial it down throughout the rest of the day. Most people find that it does. And I highly recommend experiment by incrementing your food intake slightly. Don't go overboard and suddenly double what you're already eating. Go at it slowly so that you can really be aware of when that right balance is struck.
All right, so moving on to cravings. So in this case, you've decided that you're not actually hungry, that is, you're not feeling physical discomfort, but it's more that mentally you want to actually eat something. First of all, eating when you're not hungry is still okay. The goal here is to be intentional about your decisions rather than mindless about them. If you're not hungry and you happen to eat something and you feel no regrets afterward and you feel good about what you ate, great, well done. Go ahead and do that. So these tactics only apply to you if you find yourself eating mindlessly and regretting it. The first tip for dealing with cravings is to figure out why are you having them. Usually cravings happen because you're feeling or thinking something. So for example, a lot of people like to snack when they're bored. Other people snack when they're stressed. What is the trigger that is causing you to have this craving? And a good way to figure out what is that root trigger is to ask yourself the 5 whys. So what is the 5 whys? Let me give you an example. Let's say I come home and I am craving ice cream. And so I ask myself, why am I craving ice cream? Well, I'm craving ice cream because I'm stressed. Why am I stressed? Because I'm running behind on a project. Why am I running behind on a project? Because I got caught up in doing other things and that put me behind on starting on this project. Why did I get caught up on other things? Because a coworker dropped by with a problem and I needed to help them, so all of the other stuff that I was supposed to do got pushed back, and therefore starting on this project got pushed back. Okay, why did that coworker drop by for your help and you had to do it at that time? Because I have a problem saying no to people and turning people away when they need my help. Now, you can see if I was trying to address, oh, I have an ice cream craving, and what should I do about that? I would go after tactics like, let's say, not buying ice cream or hiding ice cream behind other foods or some other tactic like that. But if I'm trying to actually address the root why, which is the fact that I cannot turn people away when they need my help, then I might go after other tactics, such as actually setting up a time in my schedule where people know they have to set up time with me in order to talk to me, so then I don't have unexpected visits and everything else doesn't get pushed back. So you see how addressing the root why causes a more complete and thorough solution versus addressing your first why, the surface why. The second tip for dealing with cravings is, let's say the trigger happens anyway, right? Despite your best efforts for the stress or the boredom or whatever to not happen, it happens. So what do you do in that case? Be prepared. So in this particular case, what you want to do is actually have a list of the kinds of cravings you have. So usually people are craving a particular sensation when they crave foods. So this could be eating something sweet, this could be eating something crunchy, it could be eating something spicy. Usually there's a specific sensation. So what is your sensation that you tend to crave? So make a list of those sensations and then go ahead and list what are some more nutritious substitutes that you could have for those. So for example, if you want something crunchy, it's possible that instead of chips, carrots might do, or celery might do, or some other substitute that you can look up which feels a good enough reward for you as a substitute for the chips that you usually have. Same thing for sweets. So for example, we have a client who likes sweets in the mid-afternoon. She has instead replaced her usual chocolate with a Quest protein chocolate bar. So this is a highly nutritious snack. It's still sweet, and therefore what ends up happening is she does not have these sugar rushes when she has the chocolate. Instead, she's having a nutritious snack that keeps her satisfied for a much longer time. So make that list of what are your usual cravings, and then go ahead and research what are the substitutes you could have that are more nutritious, and then go and stock and have these nutritious snacks ready for you at hand, right? So for example, if you get these cravings when you're driving and it's a long drive and you're bored and you end up snacking on chips, instead of having chips in your car, have the substitute ready with you. So it's important to be prepared when the cravings hit you. Tip number 3 with cravings. So in addition to having the substitute ready, you also want to make the original thing that you're craving hard to get. So one way to do this is, of course, not to buy them and not to keep them in your house. That's one way to do it. Some people find it much easier to actually go that route where they just don't have it around them, and therefore they can't have them, so therefore it's easier to actually have the substitute. But for others, it may not be possible to do that. They might find that they still go out and go get it anyway, or it's possible that, once they do have it, eventually it becomes an uncontrollable urge to have a lot of it. Or it's possible that there are people in your household who want those things and you don't want to deprive them of having them. So in that particular case, what you want to do is maybe hide those snacks behind other snacks, so it's out of sight, out of mind of sorts. So a lot of people will put, for example, the cookies behind a whole bunch of other stuff behind in the cupboard, so it's kind of hard to get to. You may even need a step stool to get there. So putting these kinds of ways where things are out of sight, out of mind, and thinking of creative ways to make it harder for you to get these treats is another way to prepare yourself, so that when these cravings hit, the routine that you usually do, which is getting the original snacks harder to get to, and therefore the substitute snacks super convenient to get to because they're at hand, so you end up actually choosing the convenient, nutritious substitute. Craving tip number 4. So let's say you have the substitute and you still want the original snack. You have it around you, or you're even willing to go out and get it if you don't have it around you. So what do you do in that case? In that particular case, what you want to do is just add another speed bump in your journey. So in this particular case, I recommend a 3-step strategy. Number 1, go ahead and drink a glass of water just to make sure that you're feeling physically satisfied properly after having your substitute. Have that glass of water, pause for about 5 minutes, and then ask yourself, do I still really want this? And if the answer is still yes, go ahead and get it. But instead of eating directly from the packet or the bag, you should take out a certain amount of it from the bag, put it into a small container, bring it with you to wherever you're sitting, and then have it from that small container. Don't directly eat it from the bag, because that again perpetuates the cycle of eating mindlessly. To finish that snack, make it really, really last long. So don't be, looking at your phone or watching TV or reading a book or whatever you might be doing. Don't do anything else other than focus on this snack. Really concentrate on the texture, even close your eyes if you want to really savor it. Make it last a really long time. So after you have done this whole thing, ask yourself again, do I still want more? And if you do still want more, then repeat this whole cycle. Have another glass of water, pause for 5 minutes, ask yourself if you really want it. If you do want it, go ahead to wherever the bag is, go get a small container, put a small amount in that container, bring it back to you, and again have it. And repeat this cycle over and over again, because the intention again is for you to be conscious about your decisions. It should never be that you are just sitting and watching something and just mindlessly eating a whole bunch of stuff, and then later on you feel not so good about, even physically, mentally, or emotionally, about what you have just done. Craving tip number 5. So let's say you tried the substitute and then you still wanted the original thing. You went and had the original thing after doing the speed bump method of pausing, drinking water, having it in a small container. And what you're finding is you just keep going back for more and more and more. So what do you do in that case? What I've seen work for some of my clients is, if they can't stop, then making a promise to themselves that for every bite of the snack that they're having, they will also have a bite of something nutritious. So for example, for every bite of ice cream that they're having, they will have a bite of carrot or lettuce or celery, whatever that might be. And alternating between these 2 bites much more quickly satisfies them with the food that they're having, and they're able to stop. So that might be another tactic that you could try in case you find yourself just unable to stop with the cycle of going back for more and more. So the last point on craving is not really a tip, it's more of a question. Are you always thinking about food? So for example, if you just had breakfast, are you already thinking about lunch? If you are someone who has been dieting for a while, or if you're trying to lose weight, it's natural to be thinking about food often, because you're planning your meals, you're thinking about the numbers, and you're kind of in that mode where you're constantly thinking about food. And if you're constantly thinking about food, it is natural that your body is going to feel that it wants food. So in that particular case, what you want to do is find activities that really take your focus away from food. Activities that really focus your attention, that are interesting to you, that hold your attention essentially. And being present will help you break the cycle where you are constantly looking for your next meal or for the next thing that you're going to go eat. Now that's easier said than done for some people, right? And if you're in this kind of mode and you find it really hard to break out of the cycle, it's possible that you may want some extra help to break out of it. There are many registered dietitians and therapists who actually specialize in helping people break through these cycles. And that might be something that you may want to try if you have tried all of the tips that we mentioned so far and none of that has worked, and you still continue to think about food all the time and as a result want food all the time, then it might be a good idea to look for some extra help. Alright, so those were all of the reasons we see time and again with our clients on why they feel always hungry. The most important being distinguishing between hunger and cravings. So then you know which of the 6 tactics or which combination of the 6 tactics for both hunger and cravings that you should try and see what works for you. If there's a tactic that works for you that we did not cover, I'm very curious. Put it down in the comments below. If you want more content like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and also click the bell icon so that you get a notification every time we upload a video. Alright, until next time.